There's no signal.
I know it's crazy, but it's
You're watching Channel Z, the world's leading zombie apocalypse channel, broadcasting live from Studio Z.
makes me act the way I do.
And hello and welcome to another very special in-studio episode of the Dr. Zed Show, live coming at you from the Mix Center in Mesa, Arizona, part of the Arizona State University infrastructure for live streaming. We are going to have a little bit of fun today. This is the second Dr. Zed as part of this year's Zombie Apocalypse Medicine Meeting 2022. And this is going to be a good one. We're going to be talking about misadventures amid destruction and the drugs of decay. We're talking a little bit about brains, disasters, and all sorts of good things. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Zed, aka Joe Alcock, MD. I am a professor of emergency medicine at the University of New Mexico. And again, today we have some fun things to talk about. I'm going to be joined by a very special guest, Amanda Gallagher. Amanda Gallagher is also from the University of New Mexico. Why don't you come on in, Amanda? And we're gonna what do we owe the pleasure of this delicious food tray?
I mean, brains are what zombies are about.
That's true.
And yeah, we have a lot of fun eating brains in this group.
So it turns out that Amanda Gallagher, she's an expert on disaster medicine. She is an expert on emergency medicine, and she's one of my colleagues at the University of New Mexico in the Department of Emergency Medicine. And we'll be going into some of her disastrous experiences. And it's also worth noting that Amanda joined us 2 years ago and made something very similar for a discussion about the diseases that people can get by actually eating brains. So maybe we'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit about that too.
Definitely. Yeah.
We have another special guest today to add to the conversation. We're going to be joined by Oxford behavioral scientists, Tomash, David, Barrett. Come on in, Tomash.
Hello. Hello.
What a pleasure it is to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me here. Next to these brains.
We three happy zombified academics. Here we are. And before we go much further, this course is going to be interactive. We'll be paying some attention, hopefully, to the comments and questions that you pose to us, and also smash that like button. Give us some love on the socials. So first topic, Amanda.
Yeah.
Tell us about disasters. Tell us about your recent deployments, things that you've seen in where there's been an element of destruction and chaos.
Right. Yeah. So I'm lucky to be on a federal disaster medicine team and have been all around the country and a little bit around the planet. And I get to go after hurricanes and other things where the infrastructure and the resources are out. And it really helps you prepare for things like the zombie apocalypse coming up, because when you don't have infrastructure or resources, things can be really challenging. And I've seen that after like Hurricane Laura, not having water and trying to perform medical procedures without running water can be really challenging. So
yeah, I imagine food's also a problem.
Food can definitely be a problem from both the scarcity and also the not cooking, the not clean water, getting sick, the bacteria build up in that area.
Yeah. So this is your product? You actually made these?
I made those, yeah. Or acquired them.
They're jiggly.
Well, you know.
How's that look? Can I taste it?
Sure.
All right. This tastes particularly good right now for some reason.
It's still raw. Yeah.
Can I have one too?
Yeah, of course. I feel like they're a little peachy.
But peachy and brainy in kind of a good way.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but my hunger for this sort of thing, it's just enhanced right now.
What kind of mammal would have this size brain?
Those are deer. That's why the hint of peach.
Yes, definitely. I taste the herbivore. Yeah.
Bambi.
Really, they taste delicious.
Awesome. Thank you.
Raspberry Bambi.
Yeah. So water, food during disasters.
Yeah, water, food,
now you cooked
safety.
You cooked this under kind of some austere conditions.
I did.
right? It didn't have a
With a-
full kitchen.
with a mini fridge.
I'm gonna have to put this down now because I could eat this all day. Really,
I mean, they're
you
very
know?
good. They're very good.
They're quite tasty. Is there any problems with eating brain? Just to refer back to ZAM 2020 and your expert lecture at that time.
I mean, it really depends if you're dead or alive already. So
Ah.
if you're still alive, there could be some problems. You know, those little prions, those rogue proteins that like to live in your brain and pop up years later whenever they want and kind of spongify it.
Kind of spongify your brain.
Yeah.
So the prion disease is the spongiform encephalopathy. That's a thing. It's a real thing. And in cultures where eating of brains is part of their traditional lifestyle, and we can think of there are some Papua New Guinea and Highlanders for which relatively famously they suffered a disease known as kuru from eating raw brains. The idea is that there's something in brains that can be transmitted like an infection and can cause a zombification like a scenario. Yeah. And it comes from raw brains like this. And you have some interest in cooking too, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, isn't that interesting that when our ancestors figured out how to smash bones to get access to the bone marrow, or skulls to get access to brain, very soon after, somehow cooking appears. Yeah.
Fascinating. So tell us more about where you're going with that idea.
Well, I mean, you know, the problem is that we have a mostly frugivorous ape,
Right.
or Australopithecines, and then they start going down a technological path in which they eat dead animals a lot. That creates a space for these parasites to emerge, and then suddenly it would make sense if there was fire around. It would make sense for cooking to appear. You know, Richard Wrangham's theory about how cooking might have appeared early, and because it's so useful. But what he doesn't quite explain, if it is so useful, why don't we see it everywhere? We've got other things that are useful. Eyes are useful, yeah?
Right.
Look, it's been invented by evolution all the time, yeah?
Yeah.
So if this is so useful, why don't we see it? And maybe one possible...
You're saying, why don't we see it more broadly in the animal kingdom?
Exactly. Why don't
Yeah,
we
so
see it?
humans are unique in cooking. And so you're suggesting that I'd be better off eating a cooked brain than a raw brain,
Yes.
right?
Is it
Or
true?
Maybe some cooked bone marrow? It's probably true for some things.
Sure.
A cooked eyeball? Perhaps. But what's the problem with that logic, do you think, Amanda?
The problem with that logic is those pesky little rogue prion proteins don't die when you cook them.
Right.
So there's
They keep
certain
living.
things-
Uh-huh.
What a crazy idea. Some of these infectious zombification agents are so robust, so resilient to environmental inputs. It's almost like a spore. It's almost imagine that it's evolved to be persistent and to avoid being degraded in the environment. But I think you're right. Your larger point, Tomash, is that certainly I think it's very plausible
Right.
that cooking evolved in part to rid ourselves of pathogen competitors.
Where is the stability coming from? So
With
did they-
prions?
Yeah. So did they evolve to stop mammals or vertebrates eat them? Is there a kind of competition?
Well, I think that we can look at prions as just being another infectious agent. It's something that replicates, and the fact that it is stable in the environment and doesn't degrade is something which helps its transmission. And now I'm not a prion expert, but that's my understanding of it. Yeah, that's for sure. Cool. Well, some good eating brain food. Is it time to move on to the next topic?
I think so.
All right, let's talk about let's have a quiz actually. Can we bring on a quiz having to do with zombie food poisonings, perhaps? Here we go. We're just gonna mix it up. We have a variety of quizzes here. So we brought on this quiz to talk about things that are made by microbes, or things that are actually found in decaying brains, or even recently killed brains. And the question is, which of these molecules is actually used as a drug in modern medicine? We have dopamine, oftentimes thought of as a reward hormone. We've got histamine, which we usually think of in terms of taking our antihistamines for allergies. We got adrenaline. Everybody knows what adrenaline is. It kind of ramps you up. And then we have hydrogen sulfide, which is known as the it's the stink of rotten eggs. So it turns out that all of these things are actually perhaps have a microbial story behind them. But which of them is actually used in medicine? I think I'll start with our actual medical practitioner.
Yeah, and yeah, Dave, please play at home. Like,
right.
Everyone, please answer if you think you know the answer. So of these, we use a lot of different things. The one I think about using most out of this group would be histamine.
Shane has tried all the above, says Dave. And I saw Diana. An uncle. That's fascinating, Jason. Jason Scott says he has an uncle histamine.
Nice. But yeah, all of them can be used in some way. Histamine can be used a lot in topical agents to bring blood flow to the skin in a way. When we take antihistamines, we're trying to kind of control that histamine reaction in the skin, and putting it on there can make things red and cause those increased blood flow to that area. So that's one way we use histamine as a medication.
Right. I think of those things, the only one which is not used as a drug, as far as I know, and I could be wrong about this, is hydrogen sulfide. So hydrogen sulfide, if you fall into a sewer shaft, the microbes that are busy metabolizing sulfur will produce some hydrogen sulfide gas, which is highly toxic. It kills you. But it turns out, not only is it made by microbes, but we find some evidence that it is involved in signaling in our own bodies. So all of this is just to say that we find some medical utility in using neurotransmitters and neurochemicals involved in the brain. And there's also a microbial story that goes along with it. Well, let's bring up another quiz. Aha. All right. So this is a good one. Getting back to thinking about various food items that are associated possibly with zombification. And this topic is an important one. We have, during this conference, of course, we make lots of references to zombies. And the zombie concept comes from the Haitian tradition of voodoo. And there have been plenty of academics, writers, and other folks that have visited Haiti and have studied the idea of the zombie, with the idea that there may be something biologically to this idea. And in fact, it's thought by some people that there may be foods and food poisonings and a certain venom or toxin or poison that can actually induce the zombie state. So the question for you, and then we'll discuss, is which of these potential things that one could eat or lick are associated with the zombie phenomenon in Haiti? And we'll start with number one. That's ciguatera. It turns out that's something that you can get from fish. Fugu, which we'll get into. Hallucinogenic fish poisoning. We have our bad tuna. I'm sure many of us have had that experience. And or toad licking. So, and the last comment there, zombie history has gone into some of the cultural traditions behind actual zombies and the phenomena of zombies from Haitian folklore and practice. Thank you, Jason, for that. And Melissa says, proud to say I've never had the desire to lick a toad.
Don't mock it till you try it.
That's true. Cynthia says, B, fugu. All right. We're gonna circle back there. Educated guesses. We'll get back to fugu. All right. Do you have any guesses, Tomash?
I would have thought that it has to do something with the fish.
All right. So you're not going with the toad.
Not going with the toad.
All right.
I would have imagined that it's some kind of fish that it should not be too frequent.
Right.
And should be very local, no?
Okay. Let's bring up an image of the pufferfish. If we can find that one. There we go. That's a pufferfish. That's a pretty impressive pufferfish, right? So these are fishes that can massively expand their volume. They oftentimes have little spikes on the end of them. Right. We had some good guesses. I saw many people actually guessed fugu. Fugu is the Japanese word for the meal that one can make out of a pufferfish. You guys tried it?
I never have, no.
Have you ever had an opportunity to try fugu?
No.
have.
I've had an opportunity, I passed it up.
I did.
Really?
As well.
Yeah. Right.
Why?
So I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Right. One, did you look at that fish?
yeah.
Why would you want to eat that? The whole thing is designed to not be eaten.
Right.
It's giving a very clear signal. It has no intention of being eaten. But fugu is the fillet that one can get from the fish. Sometimes the viscera, if you're into eating liver or ovaries of a fish. And it's the reason why not to eat it is it's incredibly toxic. It has a molecule called Tetron Toxin, and maybe we can bring up a picture of that. Tetron Toxin is a sodium channel blocker. It is thought to be one of the most potent toxins that we've discovered on the planet. Truly amazing. And of course, it wasn't discovered by us. It was discovered by pufferfish. It was discovered by certain kinds of salamanders. It's an example of an ichthyotoxin, so a fish flesh poisoning. And to bring it back full circle about cooking, the remarkable thing is you can cook the crap out of your fillet of fugu, and you're not going to cook the ichthyosarcotoxin or the muscle flesh poison out of it. The tetrodotoxin is very stable, like the prion, and you can't cook it out of it. And for your unfortunate victim, you might start with a little tingle around the lips. You might notice a little bulging of the eyes, a little bit of a tightness in the throat. That rapidly progresses to respiratory failure in the most severe intoxications, a loss of consciousness, and people will proceed to death. But before that, they may appear dead. And in more mild envenomations, there's a chance that you can survive this. But this is super, super toxic stuff. And bringing it back.
That's when the zombie happens.
There you go. Thank you,
I
Tomash.
see.
Thanks for bringing it back.
A day later,
Yeah.
this person who's died from this toxin reawakens. They have awoken from the dead.
It looks like us.
Yes.
I don't know what you're talking
looks
about.
like a bad day.
I think I look just fine. Thank you very much. Thank you.
His
very much.
allergies are getting worse every day.
It's just allergies, folks. It's just a little bit of allergies. Although those brains look so tasty, it looks so delicious. They're glistening
just gonna sink my
with
teeth
flavor.
into that big one
I know,
soon.
yeah. But for those that took the quiz, in fact, all of those items, the licking the toxin off of the frog, the other fishes, these have all been proposed as possible sources of actual zombies in Haiti. And there was a famous case thought to be probably related to fugu and tetrodotoxin, in which someone did emerge from after a burial. So this is perhaps an anecdote, but there have been case reports of such things happening, possibly and most famously related to fugu or tetrodotoxin. So that's good. Do we have a Barracuda image that we can show you guys? I just want to talk briefly about this. Haiti, of course, is in the Caribbean. It's a tropical place. There are both reef fishes, and if you're swimming in the reef, you may see one of these guys. Turns out that Captain Cook, when he first arrived in the Caribbean Sea, many of the people on the boat got sick after eating a giant barracuda. So, do you know what the illnesses that one can get from eating barracuda? Are you fond of barracuda?
Barracuditis.
Barracuditis. I love it.
I don't know. What do you get?
Do you know?
I don't know this one. No.
All right. It's ciguatera. Ciguatera is the most common fish flesh poisoning, far more common than fugu. Fugu is just another word, the Japanese word for pufferfish. Ciguatera causes a temperature reversal. Things that are hot feel cold. Things that are cold feel hot in your mouth. And then it causes a rapid collapse of your nervous system. And in fact, there are some places where ciguatera is so common, and I hate to say this for those of you that are cat lovers, some people actually will feed the resident cat a little bit of fish and see if the cat collapses before they go on to consume it themselves. But it is relatively common. I've never had it. There's one more thing. I talked about bad tuna. I don't have a picture of this, but one of my colleagues, he was an internal medicine doc that trained at the University of New Mexico. His name was Steve Pergam. He went to the Four Seasons Hotel and had a delicious tuna steak. And that tuna ended up having a poison in it.
Right.
And so that's called scromboid. That's the bad tuna on the quiz. So all these things have been kind of kicked around as possible causes of the zombie apocalypse. But there's lots of reasons to not eat fish. And the problem with all these things, ciguatera, the fugu, the scromboid, is you can't cook it out. All right. So cooking is super useful. Having a piece of cooked brain, delicious. But if it's out of a fish, or if it's from someone with a prion disease, maybe not so great. Maybe not so great. The other piece of this is that these crazy toxins, the Tetron Toxin and the histamine, even though these are found in a bunch of different animals, it turns out these are made by microbes. The histamine in scromboid, or the bad tuna, that comes from microbes digesting a little bit of bad fish. Ciguatera comes from a dinoflagellate, a little microbe in the ocean that gets taken up by fish. And Tetron Toxin, of course, is concentrated by the pufferfish, but they don't make it themselves. And in fact, in Japan, you can have safe fugu that's raised in a tank that doesn't have the little microbes that allow the Tetron Toxin to accumulate in the body of the fish.
Yeah.
Really?
Right. Now, why do you suppose these toxins evolve in the first place?
Why?
Tomash?
We mentioned earlier, maybe there was a competition.
Between microbe and human?
Yeah, or microbe and whatever vertebrate. These will work on all vertebrates, no?
Yeah.
So whatever vertebrate was competing for the same food, no?
Well, so the idea that you could have some kind of an agent of decay that renders a food so poisonous that you can't eat it no matter what you do to it,
Right.
that persists, that may be a way for a microbe to monopolize those resources and prevent them from you. And of course, we all have a sense of smell. We have a sense of taste. We can taste and we get a clue as to the presence of some of these toxins. In fact, there's one more I want to talk about. Can we bring up the quiz that has decay molecules in them? Let's see if we can find this one. Nope. Let's try a different one. We'll get to that. And let's keep going. I hope I included it. There we go. All right. Oh, we're missing one, but it has three good ones. Okay, let me read you this quiz. Or perhaps you'd like to read it.
Sure. Which of the following drugs in decaying flesh is actually useful as a drug in modern medicine? Is it putrescine, spermatidine, or cadaverine?
And who wants to sample these things? All right.
Well, we got one taker.
All right. So I'll tell you what. All these things smell bad. All right. And if we're handed a little brain burger that has a lot of putrescine and cadaverine, does cadaverine seem like it would taste good to you guys? All right. So these are all okay. They're cultist, cult of chaos.
So sniff your food, basically.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but I think this idea, though, that microbes may be transforming these foods to make them inedible to us is a way that they're able to keep the foods for themselves. Perhaps. That's an interesting thought. I like it. As far as the quiz answer, it's spermidine is one that actually has a medical use. It is useful for both treating and preventing cardiovascular disease. The other two are highly toxic. Cadaverine, putrescine, we want to stay away from those guys. That's right.
So what does this mean for our concept of life?
Well, tell me.
Well, just I'm thinking of it now. Yeah. So our current idea of a life is that you're going to have a cell in which there's going to be a particle molecule or a virus, but still the structural molecule is pretty much the same. But you're saying that here, essentially, the agent of selection is not DNA-like substance. The agent of selection is a molecule. It could be anything.
That's true.
So
for
are you
our
widening
prions.
out the concept of life now?
I have a very, not to put this in religious terms, but a more universal concept of life. If you're a replicator, perhaps even if you're a meme, like the zombie meme, which has a lot of cultural relevance in our society, I would argue that all these things are lifelike. If there is a biological thing that emerged on this planet, independent of us humans, things like prions, things like bacteria, viruses, etc., I think those all fall into the category of life.
When we talk a lot about this, bacteria is causing these toxins and stuff to keep us from taking their food, but there's a lot that we have symbiotic relationships with. If we talk about like Enterococcus living in our guts, making dopamine, these bacteria that produce good chemicals and neurochemicals in our body that help us move and walk and feel happy and love.
So it's not all competition.
No.
Our microbial relationships are not necessarily red in tooth or claw.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. I like that. In fact, but we have This may relate to we've talked about things we don't want to eat. We don't want to eat cadaverine. We don't want to eat putrescine. We'd rather not eat prions unless you are a prion. But in fact, there are some things that we do like to eat, and we've actually taken advantage of some of these microbes. And there is a quiz, I think, that has something to do with soy sauce in it. I don't know if we can find that quiz. Let's do this for our final quiz. There we are. Which of these bioactive molecules are found in soy sauce and many other fermented foods, such as the fish sauce, which is common in Vietnamese food? Lots of Asian fermented cuisines contain some of these things. Let's go over it. So again, these are neurochemicals, all right? We got our GABA, that's A. We have our serotonin, B. C, our histamine, and C plus, or maybe C minus, our adrenaline. Any answers from our audience? Brains. All right, so if you're fermenting your brain and you're lucky enough not to have any prions and you like to douse it in soy sauce, let's actually bring up a picture of soy. We have a soy sauce chicken dish, I think, somewhere we could take a look at. So GABA, Diana says. Oh yeah, let's just leave it right there. All right, so briefly, guys, all of those neurochemicals, things that we think of as being human or mammalian neurotransmitters, they are actually in fermented foods, and GABA in particular. GABA is number one. Lactobacillus, a lot of what we tend to use as a beneficial way to ferment foods and keep them safe for us is going to actually activate the GABA receptor, the same one that Valium activates, and it makes us feel calm. And so some people really seek out these fermented foods. I bring up the aged cheese example for our final thought. Does that ring any bells to you? Is there any problem with eating cheese? Now, Tomash, you're from Europe.
I am from Europe, yes.
Do you like to eat aged cheese?
Very much so.
Yeah? And you said that the whole thing on the charcuterie plate, your aged pork, these things actually contain a lot of these neurochemicals, all right? That actually is a way for us to preserve food. It's not necessarily bad, except for one particular example. And that's if you're taking something called an MAOI inhibitor drug. These were commonly used as antidepressants. But there's something called an aged cheese reaction, or the tyramine reaction. And that if you're on one of these medications and then you eat your aged cheese, all these neurochemicals that are normally just happily sitting in your gut, and you have a enzyme that digests them and inactivates them. It's called monoamine oxidase. If you lack activity of that enzyme, then these neurochemicals, they go amok. And people, what does someone with a tyramine reaction look like? Any thoughts? Imagine tons of adrenaline, and it's a catecholamine precursor. It starts circulating and affecting your whole body.
They're going to be flushed and hot fever.
I like Jason's point here. Maui is an effective treatment for depression. Anyway, it makes your body, we'll say, explode in a way. Not quite, but you could have a stroke. Your blood pressure goes through the roof. All sorts of bad things happen to you. This unmasks this effect of all these neurochemicals. And the fact that we have that enzyme proves to me that we've been evolving along with these microbes, and we're trying to keep these chemicals down as much as possible. We don't want them hijacking us. So I think on that hijacking note, this may be time for us to wrap it up. Look at this. Look at a thing of beauty. A thing of beauty. So thank you so much. Thank you for our special guest. Thank you, Amanda Gallagher. Thank you, Tomash.
Thank you very much for having
so
me.
Much. Brains. All right. Wraps up this Dr. Zed. Join us again tomorrow. We got one more.
And if the